Well, if we have not met, my name is Carl. I am the lead pastor of this place called Mosaic, and I'm kind of wearing my whistle today because one thing that I love to do in my spare time is coach little kids basketball. I have been doing this for multiple years with multiple of my boys. Right now, I'm coaching a 4th and 5th grade team, and I don't know a ton about coaching, but one thing I know unequivocally, especially at this age, is that what matters most is working on fundamentals. I have so many kids of so many different skill levels that the thing that I know will help all of them is if all of them get better at fundamentals. So I'm going to have a little fun this morning, and I'm going to show you how I coach fundamentals. London, come on up. Let's get some music going. This is my 4th grade son, London. He's going to be my student this morning. Why don't we start with some 2 basketball dribbling like we see Steph Curry do. Keep that going. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. He told me that the balls are different amounts of air, so this is going to be hard for him. Okay, now let's do a little between the legs if you want to be adventurous. Okay, good. A little more, one more. Let's go. Okay, give me one of the balls. Now, one thing we've seen online that really helps, and one of his instructors works with him, is catching the ball, because that way he can't watch dribbling, so he can keep his eyes up on the defense. He's also left-handed, so I got to make him work on his right hand. This is good, London. Good. One more. All right, let's do just a little passing here. You want to do chest or bounce? What do you got? You're doing chest. All right, put it right on my chest. There we go, right there. Good. Dad, give me good passes. Oh, there we go. One more. All right, hold it. Okay, let's do a little shooting. And one mistake I see so many kids make that I coach, and it's just such a basic mistake, is they come in the gym and they say, oh, I'm Kobe, I'm Steph, whatever, and they want to immediately start shooting 3-pointers. And it's like, no, you haven't even warmed up. One, you're like 4 feet tall, so don't even try and shoot 3-pointers yet. You're going to get some bad form that ain't going to work. So we start close to work on our form. We use the glass when we're close because Tim Duncan, hello, and we just go back and forth, and that's how we warm up, okay? As you get farther, you don't have to use the glass. There we go, couple more, warming up. Hit that right there, good. Now, here's what we're gonna do, is there comes a point in a game, you always see this in March Madness or something, a team will be tied with 0 seconds, 0.1 seconds on the clock. They have one guy to shoot a free throw, and this is going to determine if their season is over or not. So we're prepping London for this, and I actually think this is going to be really fun because he's never had to have a crowd cheer against him when he's shooting important free throws. He's not going to need therapy. It's going to be okay. Okay, you can cheer for him after he makes it, but I want you to be that high school raucous crowd that's trying to get him to miss the free throw. We didn't really measure it out. That looks about right. Okay, wait, London. Come on. Distract him. One more. Come on. Boom, let's go. Good job, my man. Good job. Will you give London a big hand? Thank him for helping me out. Hey, 1 or 2 is good, my man. You just sent it to overtime. Okay, so that was all good. Here's why I do that. 1, Carl, is that just a shameless plug to have fun with your son? Kinda, absolutely. And it was fun. Thank you for watching. But also, that's the thing you're going to remember when you lead church today, and that's going to cement in what we're going to talk about as a church. And here's why. Let me just hold one of those balls. Toss one of those balls up here. I want to use that as my prop today. Is if you want to get good at basketball, the thing you got to do is work on fundamentals. So you'll see in the playoffs, LeBron James get fouled and he's fading away and maybe even out of bounds. He shoots it over the backboard. He makes some amazing shot that ends up on the Sports Center top 10. And we all say, wow, LeBron's amazing, or fill in your favorite basketball player. It's not because LeBron in practice has people hack him and he practices fadeaway jumpers. It's because he works on fundamentals. And he's got strength and quickness and agility and good form so that when he gets put in a situation he didn't plan, he can use that good form in any situation and do what needs to be done. The reason Steph Curry can step way back and hit those half-court shots that we like seeing on the highlights isn't because he practiced half-court shots all his life. It's because he practiced good form, and he's got a good shooting technique, and then because he has good fundamentals, he can back up and back up and back up and back up and hit these amazing shots. Write this down. The difference between greatness and mediocrity is the fundamentals. The difference between greatness and mediocrity is the fundamentals. You see that in basketball. You see it in other sports. It's the golfer who will practice a 3-foot chip for 4 hours. It's the tennis player who practices her backhand even though she doesn't like it and her arm's about to fall off all day. It's the mountain biker who says, I don't want to just go fast, I want to get better, so they don't just go out to ride. They actually work on technique. It's fundamentals. What we're going to do today is talk about some fundamentals. Sometimes if a team, and that's what we're a team, forgets fundamentals, they'll chase the wrong things. They won't be able to challenge each other well, and they won't win. As a church, we're going to talk about fundamentals. We've been going through 2 Corinthians in the Bible. We're going to push that on pause for a bit, and we're going to do some other things, and we'll get back to 2 Corinthians another time. But the fundamentals, being the difference between greatness and mediocrity, is not just true for a sports player. It's not just true for a team. It's true for the individual Christian in how you practice spiritual disciplines. And it's also true for the team we call a church. That if we miss the fundamentals, we won't win and we'll miss something we're supposed to be about. So I want to jump right into Scripture. We're going to read from Revelation today. Revelation chapter 21 starts like this, famous passage. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the old heaven and the old earth had disappeared, and the sea was also gone. So it's giving us a vision of the future. Verse 2. I saw the holy city, the New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven like a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. So some weird imagery. I heard a loud shout from the throne saying, look, God's home is now among his people. He will live with them, and they will be his people. God himself will be with them. This is describing the end of time. And then here's the famous verse. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or sorrow or crying or pain. All these things are gone forever. Write down the first fundamental. Heaven is real. Heaven is real. I want everybody to say that out loud. 1, 2, 3, go. Heaven is real. And we talk a lot here about how Jesus doesn't save us just for heaven, meaning he helps us in this life. It's what the Sermon on the Mount was about all summer. It's why we've been learning practical things on conflict and marriage and all these things as we go through 2 Corinthians. But at the end of the day, the thing that drives us is heaven. It's why the book of Revelation is in the Bible, to say God wins, justice wins, his love wins. There will be no more pain or death or suffering. Verse 4 is one of the most encouraging verses in all the Bible. I think I've read it at every funeral I've ever performed. And if that verse doesn't give you hope that there will be no more pain one day, if that doesn't give you chills, I don't know what will, because the day is coming when pain is gone forever. When I was growing up, there was this kind of cheesy but kind of good Christian radio song called I Can Only Imagine, and I kind of like the point of it. Some of you are getting nostalgic right now. Don't sing it, okay? Spare your neighbor. But I love the idea of that song, because when I think of heaven, I can't imagine what it's like to have a world with no pain. I can't imagine how there can be a world with no more suffering or tears, and I can't wait to get there. Heaven is real. But let's skip ahead. In Revelation 21, verse 8. But cowards, unbelievers, the corrupt, murderers, immoral, those who practice witchcraft, idol worshipers, and all liars, their fate is the fiery lake of burning sulfur. This is the second death. Just got real quiet. Because we don't like this part, right? In fact, I actually keep track, just for my sake, of what verses I use in sermons. I have never used this verse in any sermon I've ever preached in any venue ever. And here's the second point. Hell is real. Write that down. I want you to say that out loud. 1, 2, 3, go. Hell is real. Now, we don't like to talk about that. Because look at it. Revelation is imagery. Go back to the verse for me for a second. Revelation is imagery, and the best imagery that it can come up with to say, here's the best way to explain what hell would be like, is it's a fiery lake of burning sulfur. Kind of uncomfortable. And just so we're clear, if hell was mentioned one time in the Bible, we would absolutely believe it. But it's mentioned way more than that. In fact, Jesus himself talks about it a lot. He says hell is a place of eternal torment, Luke 16, of unquenchable fire, Mark 9. He says the worm does not die, Mark 9. It's where people will gnash their teeth in anguish and regret, Matthew 13. He says from there's no return even to warn loved ones, Luke 16. He calls hell a place of outer darkness, Matthew 25. And he compares it in Matthew 10 to Gehenna. Now, Gehenna was the city dump outside the town of Jerusalem. So it's a place, he says, of trash and maggots. Jesus talks more about hell than he does heaven, and describes it more vividly. Author C.S. Lewis one time said, heaven is for people who say to God, your will be done. Hell is for people to whom God says, your will be done. And here's what he means. In eternity, you experience the fullness of what your life reflected that you actually wanted. So for people who said, God, I can't live without you, then in eternity, you get the full experience of the full presence of God. And if you say on this earth, God, I don't want to have anything to do with you, then eternity is simply the full experience of what you've always wanted. It's God granting you what you wished for all along. Hell is real. But we skipped a little bit. Let's get back to the nice part, verse 5. The one sitting on the throne said, look, I'm making everything new. And he said, it is finished. I'm the Alpha and Omega. And that's simply the first and last letters of the Greek alphabet. I'm the beginning and the end. To all who are thirsty, I will give freely from the springs of the water of life. All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings. I will be their God, and they will be my children. This is the great hope of Christianity. This is grace. He makes everything new. Meaning in heaven, our bodies will be made new. Our relationships will be made new. Everything will be made new. In fact, this kind of echoes something Jesus says another time in the Gospels. There's a story many of you are familiar with where Jesus one time goes to a well for water in the middle of the day in Samaria. And a woman comes out by herself, so they have this one-on-one conversation, and she's getting her water out of the well, and he says, I have a water that if you drink from, you'll never be thirsty again. It'll actually give you eternal life. And I love that image of water and being thirsty, because we've all been that place where maybe been exercising, maybe just been out too long on a hot day, and you're just dying for water, and you know somewhere in the back of your head, if I don't get water, like at some point, I would die. Jesus says, I am the thing that quenches your soul's thirst. And look at the phrase. He says, I give freely. The gift of grace is free. Jesus died in our place. We have a darkness inside of us. It's what Romans says. The good I want to do, I don't do. What I don't want to do, that evil is what I go do. We are evil, and we try on our own to conquer it, but we can't. And we are destined to hell if left to ourselves. But God gives it freely. And there's nothing you can do to earn it anyway. Here's the way I would sum up this. Grace is real. Write that down. Grace is real. In fact, just say that out loud. 1, 2, 3, go. Grace is real. I want to remind you some of my favorite quotes about grace. I just can't get enough of these. Tullian Tchividjian once said, grace is so offensive that if you're not offended by it, you probably don't understand it. Philip Yancey said, grace means there's nothing you can do to make God love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make God love you less. That'll change your life if you really get it. Tchividjian goes on, grace doesn't make demands, it just gives. Grace is recklessly generous, uncomfortably promiscuous. It doesn't use sticks, carrots, or time cards. It doesn't keep score. Grace is love that seeks you out when you have nothing to give in return. Grace is love coming at you that has nothing to do with you. Grace is being loved when you're unlovable. Grace is unconditional acceptance given to an undeserving person by an unobligated giver. It is one-way love. So Jesus came to liberate us from the weight of having to make it on our own or the demand to measure up. He came to emancipate us from the burden to get it all right, from the obligation to fix ourselves, find ourselves, and free ourselves. Jesus came to release us from the slavish need to be right, rewarded, regarded, and respected. Because Jesus came to set the captives free, life does not have to be a tireless effort to establish ourselves, justify ourselves, and validate ourselves. The way we say it here is grace is endless second chances. And this is why we gather, to be reminded heaven is real, hell is real. And I've experienced a taste of hell when I tried to do things on my own without God, and I don't ever want to go back to that, and I don't ever want to taste it again, because in a phrase, God, you are the grace giver. And it is best summed up in Jesus' words, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me. I'm gentle and humble in heart. You'll find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy and my burden is light. And we paraphrase it all the time. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, Jesus says, and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. And this is what Christmas is about, that God loves us so much that he sent his son as a vulnerable baby for us. And the reason Christmas is a big deal is grace, because it's not God waiting on us to find our way back to him. It is God coming down to us to lead us back to him, and that's good news. This is the fundamentals of what we believe. This is what it's all about, that heaven is real, hell is real, and grace is real. So, what's the application? Because of basketball, if all you do is practice the fundamentals, but you just keep it in your backyard, it doesn't accomplish anything. There's a time where you have to go play the game. You got to go on the court. You've got to execute with your teammates and win. If the fundamentals of our faith are that heaven is real, hell is real, grace is real, okay, how do we go in? How do we put those fundamentals into practice? Well, we said for years around here that the win is baptism. And the reason is because of Jesus. It's what he says. The way you accept grace, he says, is believe and get baptized. Here's how he says it. Mark chapter 16. Go into all the world and preach the good news to everyone. Anyone who believes and is baptized will be saved. This is why we say every week, check the baptism box if you want the free gift of grace. We'd love to talk to you about it this week. And notice what Jesus says. He says, anyone who refuses to believe will be condemned. He's talking about hell. But he's saying, you must believe and be baptized. This is why we cover our lobby with baptism pictures. This is why we have a scoreboard in our office with the amount of baptisms we've had year to date and even all time. It's why the entrance hallway to my office is covered with baptism. So we as a group never forget what we're about. It's why we go nuts every time there's a baptism. Be reminded, this is the most important thing. This is the most exciting thing we will see all week. Someone's crossing from death to life. It's why we exist. The question is, what are you doing to get in the game? Because we can sit here and do fundamentals all day. We can talk about grace all the time. And I get that there are times that you metaphorically crawl into this place saying, God, I'm dying of thirst. I just need a drop of living water to get me through the next week. I get it. But the way we win is not simply to practice fundamentals alone. It's to take those fundamentals, get in the game, and win. And if the win is baptism, what are you doing to help the team win? In other words, before someone is baptized, they have to be here to hear the gospel, and before they're here, they have to be invited. So what are you doing to get people here? And I'll be more specific. We have years of data that shows the best time to bring somebody is Christmas. We have more first-time guests at Christmas than any other time of year. I think, the story I tell myself, is that it's because Christmas is such a cultural moment that people look at it and say, well, it can't just be presents and food and parties. There's got to be something more going on. And they're looking for deeper meaning, and we have it. Christmas is the best and easiest time to bring people the entire year. So, who you bringing? And here's why I talk about bringing so much, because it's the easiest way to tell people about Jesus. See, look at what we just read, Mark 16. He says, go into all the world and preach the good news to everyone. And this means that we as a church are involved in planting new churches. Just started supporting another one recently. Can't wait to tell you more about it. It's going to be great. It's why we as a church get involved with worldwide missions. But the easiest way for us to live this out is to simply bring people to church. It's actually biblical. See, one time when Jesus is beginning his ministry, just the very first days of it, literally, somebody comes up to him and says, hey, what are you about? What are you trying to do? What's going on here? You know what Jesus says? Come and see. And then the next day, one of the people who'd seen Jesus goes to somebody else and says, hey, you got to check this guy out. This may be the one sent from God. We may want to follow this guy. And he says, what are you talking about? And the guy says, just come and see. And the story we just talked about with Jesus and the woman at the well and living water and you can drink this and live forever, she, after encountering Jesus, goes back to town and says, you've got to meet this guy. I don't even know everything that's going on with him, but just come and see. Over and over, this is how people in the Bible introduce people to Jesus. And it's not biblical. It's not just biblical. It works. I remember when I was in high school, and when I started understanding this, I'd been captivated by grace, and I wanted everybody I knew and rubbed shoulders with to accept grace. So my high school was my mission field. I remember this one particular friend I had named Lindsay, and it wasn't my Lindsay, it was another Lindsay. I don't know where she is. We lost touch over the years, but we were friends in high school. And real intelligent girl, casual friendship we had, and we would talk about faith from time to time, because I talked about faith with everybody from time to time. But often, when I talked about faith in high school, the conversation would devolve really quickly, because they would be asking important questions about the Bible, or Jesus, or pain and suffering, or any amount of deep theological issues. And because I was kind of new and didn't know the Bible well, I hadn't gone to Bible college yet, I wasn't some professional minister yet or something like that, I would do my best to answer their questions, but inevitably I wouldn't do a great job, which would result in them being annoyed and me being disappointed. So one time, me and Lindsay, I think it was in history class, are having one of these conversations that high schoolers have about all the deep meaning of life. And she starts asking me these questions, and I was not answering questions. She was getting frustrated. I was doing my best. I'm getting annoyed. And finally, I just said in complete exasperation and annoyance, why don't you just come to church with me and let my preacher answer? She goes, fine, I will. It's like, great. So that Sunday, I drive over to her house, and a couple of other girlfriends are there, and, she needs her people to go with her. She hops in their car and they follow me. I show them where to park, walk in the building. She immediately sees somebody they know, which is a good start, right? And you know how it is when you bring a guest. You're like, please don't do anything weird today, like have your son play basketball on stage or something like that. And the people are nice and the band is good and all these different things. And we walk in and the sermon is just for her. It's just one of those moments where it's like, was somebody tapping the phone lines or what? Because it's just funny and it's biblical and it's relevant and it's practical and it's just all about grace and Jesus. It's just great. After church, she gets in her car, I get in my car, we go home. So the next day I walk into history class, and our desks, the way it was set up, are kind of facing each other. So we're just literally looking at each other. And I try and ask real casually as if her eternity doesn't hang in the balance. So Lindsay, what'd you think of church yesterday? And she kind of cocks her head and gives me this knowing look. She says, Carl, I totally get it. She said, I'm not ready to follow Jesus, but I totally get why you're so passionate, and I want to keep learning more. In that moment, I had unintentionally stumbled on a biblical principle. That the most effective way, not the only way by any stretch of the imagination, but the easiest way for sure to change the world is simply say, come and see. And then over the course of high school, when I had experience after experience after experience like that, at some point I just decided I just need to go start a church so I can create an environment where there isn't a good one yet for people to come and see. And this is why we're a church when people don't go to church. It's because we want to win. Jesus said, I came to seek and save the lost. We're the church, and we don't apologize for it. The scriptures are our standard, and King Jesus is our Savior, and we have allegiance to him, and we will do whatever he says under any circumstances for the rest of our life. At the same time, we are a church for people who don't go to church because we are here to carry on Jesus' mission. And when your friend, when your kid, when your parent sits next to you, you don't care about yourself at all. You just want them to get grace. See, we're talking about fundamentals. And the fundamental action of the Christian when it comes to telling people about Jesus is to say, come and see. And the reason is simply we found the best thing ever and we got to share it. I was at the park several years ago when my kids were a lot younger even than London is right now. Just took all the kids to a little playground by our house, drove them over there. They get out. There's nobody else at the playground, no other cars, no kids, no parents, anything like that. So I play with them a little bit. I'm sitting on the bench, just kind of letting them swing and slide and all that kind of stuff. When I look down, and on the bench that I'm sitting on, kind of in the cracks of the wood of the bench, is some money. I look at it. It's a $100 bill. And I'm like, somebody was sitting here. $100 fell out of their pocket. I look around. There's nobody coming. I'm thinking, I'm going to lunch. Right? It was going to be PB&J day, but it's Chick-fil-A day now, and I'm already picturing my third refill of sweet tea. Then I pick it up, unfold it, and see it's not a $100 bill, it's $1 million bill. And when I turn it over, it says, here's the $1 million question, will you go to heaven when you die? Because Christians are stupid sometimes. Am I allowed to say that? I just did. But I was annoyed, mostly because I was already tasting that sweet chicken I was going to go get, and I wasn't going to get that anymore, but also because that person was practicing fake evangelism. It was weak evangelism. They wanted to tell people about Jesus, but they neglected to do it the way Jesus did it himself. So instead of building a relationship and doing the hard work of that over time so they could say, come and see, they said, I'll just leave a little paper here, fake people out, and I'll trick them into coming to church. That doesn't work. They're not sharing Jesus the way he shared himself. He says, come and see. So, here's the thing. Talking about come and see, I am not good at saying come and see. I need to grow in this, and I'm trying to grow. I did say come and see to someone who said they would likely come this week, so guest, I won't say your name, but if you're here, make sure you grab me after service. But what I did this week is I reached out to a bunch of people who I have heard kind of third hand are great bringers on our team as part of Mosaic. And I texted them, called them, voice memos, all these things, and said, I want you to teach me how to say come and see. And I just want to read you some of their answers because I thought they were so great. There's so many great stuff. I couldn't put everybody's answer in here. I had students get back to me. I had married people, single people, the whole deal. Here's what one person said. The number one thing is the long game. It's relational evangelism. When my neighbors need me for something, I always show up to move a refrigerator or whatever. Then one of them calls me yesterday and says, I'm Roman Catholic. Do you know a good church for me? I said, I know a great one. And this guy said, I don't like using those invite cards. Those don't work for me. It starts with relationships. I lead with how my life was changed. People are starving for that out here. It starts with relational evangelism. And then he also said, I did get the Mosaic logo tatted on myself. That's a good conversation starter. So there you go. Another person I talked to right after that said that they do use the invite cards a whole lot, but they use them real strategically, and he told me two different ways their family does this. One is when they're out in public, the husband and wife will never hand out an invite card. They think their kids are cute, and other people think they're cute, so they give their kids the cards and make them hand them to the cashier or waitress with their big, tear-filled eyes and say, will you please come to church? And you're like, what am I supposed to respond to this? So it's pure manipulation, and I love it. But the other way that they do this is they throw parties in their neighborhood. So he told me a story about how when we did a few months ago the homecoming at Mosaic, right? I was coming back from sabbatical and it was NFL kickoff. We had tons of stuff outside. It was all kinds of fun stuff that because that was hyped up so much, this family, threw a party in their neighborhood, set up a big tent, invited all their neighbors, grilled hot dogs for the whole neighborhood, handed out invite cards with all of them, and one of their neighbors actually came to church the next day. One person I reached out to said, Carl, I was feeling so down when I got your message because today I invited my son's teacher and it did not go well. She was offended to say the least. But for me, they said, it's just organic. I'm not afraid of letting people know my beliefs. Much like what I've learned in sobriety, I do my best to live my example every day. And if you want to know how I did it, I say, come and see. They go on. A saying in AA is keep it simple, stupid. That's my approach. Everybody's going through something. I let them know where my relief is found, but instead of saying the Bible or Jesus, which is where it's found, I mention the group I was in, or playing football at the children's home on Thanksgiving. Then people instinctively ask, how'd you get involved in those things? And that's when I say, Mosaic, exit 7, come and see. Somebody else said, the environment Mosaic brings to the table is exactly what makes the difference for us. This is a husband and wife. When we came to Mosaic, we were hungry, and we knew people who were hungry to grow. So come and see is easy. When we see people in our lives who are missing something, we use the trust we have with people. We say, you're missing something in your life. Come check out Mosaic. And then the wife went on a rant with me about how she says come and see all the time, but she doesn't mean to say come and see because she's kind of like drunk Mosaic Kool-Aid about how much Jesus has impacted her in this place. And she says, I talk about Mosaic all the time. I'm always talking about it. I never shut up, and not even purposefully. And then as I'm rambling about it, people will say, well, I guess I'll check it out. And she's like, oh yeah, I was totally meaning to invite you right then. Come on. But they say we're just excited, and it permeates relationships with friends and coworkers and all of it. When people ask, how long have you been here? How did you get so connected? We say, we've been here less than a year. We just did what they said. We wanted to grow, so we joined a group, got on a serving team. We're connected, we're growing. And here's how they finished their conversation. We have people we've brought who are struggling, and they're still struggling, but now they're not alone. Another guy said to me, I've just always been part of groups, musical groups, sports teams. I know everybody has to do their part. My part's to bring. People have a desire and need for something bigger. They have FOMO. I have the answer. Then last one, another couple said, one of the reasons we came to Mosaic is the environment is so relatable to our everyday life. We find ways in everyday interactions to bring up church. And when I have a guest, I'm willing to go to multiple services. I encourage my friends and family to meet at my house so we can ride together. I tell them service starts 15 minutes earlier so we don't get rushed. We have time to drop off the kids, use the restroom, introduce them to somebody we know. I tell them the beginning is a rock concert, and the message is always something that resets me for my week. And then this couple said, we always try to have a meal with whoever we've invited afterwards. And we may talk about service or may not, but it does make the connection greater. I love Jesus. I don't want to freak out my friends, but I ask them to come to church, and I let church be the way my friends and family can bump into Jesus. And I just want to say, all of you who bring so well, I had a guy come to me after last service. He said, so far I got 10 people coming with me, all of them non-believers for Christmas. Wow. You'll inspire me. And that's the norm around here. And I love it. And I want to follow your example, so I'm working on it. I don't want to give you one quick logistical thing. When you bring a guest, make sure you drag their butt to the black tent. And it's not just so they can get that t-shirt, another smiling face. It's because our staff team has put in place a very not weird, but effective follow-up process that will in a nice, available way to say, hey, we'd love for you to come back and see some more. And I'll give us an opportunity to do that. One of the worst things, I'm grabbing my basketball. One of the worst things in basketball is a ball hog, right? We've all seen this. You see this at every level. You see it in third grade basketball. You see this in NBA. Somebody who thinks, I am God's gift to this team and to the game of basketball itself. I will shoot every single time I get the ball, right? Nobody likes a ball hog. If your name is Steph Curry, be a ball hog. But the reason he's great is he's not even a ball hog. You know what the worst thing in church is? A grace hog. Somebody thinks, grace is all for me, and they can't share it. And they love Jesus genuinely. They love worship, they love connecting, they just don't want anybody else to have it. And think about this, nobody ever calls themselves a ball hog, right? Nobody would ever say, hey, you want to be on my team? I'm ball hog. Because they would just argue, well, I'm just doing what's best for the team. Obviously, the team wants me to shoot all the time. And nobody ever calls themselves a grace hog. But your behavior betrays you. And we'll go back to our main passage one more time. Look at this verse. When I look at this verse of who suffers the second death, it's easy for me to write a lot of this off. Because it mentions things like idol worshipers, right? I doubt many of us bowed down to a rock this week. It mentions those who practice witchcraft. Closest I've ever gotten to that is trying to teach my kids Wingardia Leviosa, right? Mentions murderers, which we all agree, murder is a bad thing. Like, don't do that, right? So it's easy for us to write this off. And that's what we do to justify ourselves, right? Oh, I'm pretty good. Haven't idol worship, haven't cast any spells on anybody this week. I'm doing all right. But look at the first word, cowards. It's not a word we use very much, right? It kind of sounds old-fashioned. But it's an insult, right? If I say you're a coward, it's an insult. But here's the thing, when I read it, I think of me. Because when I am around somebody and I don't say come and see, I'm a coward. And when I make excuses for people, I'm a coward. And if I get more passionate about preaching to you, the team, about why you need to come and see, than I do actually go living it out this week, then I'm just a coward. And when I rationalize, well, my personality, or, I've only lived in Maryland, or my life is so busy that I'm the one exempt from living out Jesus' command to tell everybody about grace, if I say that, I'm a coward. I don't want to be a coward. I'll always need grace. So I fight my laziness. I fight my pride and my arrogance. Anything that makes me take the easy way out. But what I really want to do is be like all the people I talked to this week, some of whom stories I was able to share. When I begin any season with basketball at any age groups, I tell them, I have two goals for you. They're very simple. I want you to play hard. I want you to have fun. For one thing, if we're not having fun, what are we doing playing sports, right? It's supposed to just be a fun way to get some energy and exercise, right? So if we're not having fun, don't play. That would just be dumb. But I believe the way you have fun is to win. But even if you don't win, if you know you worked hard, you played your butt off, and you left it all on the court, you walk out of the gym with your head held high, knowing I gave my all, that's all I got, and I'm proud of what I did. My question for you, Mosaic, I know you want to have fun. Are you playing hard? Or are you just being like the kid who wants to goof off at practice? See, I don't care what kind of skill level somebody has on my team. I just want to know they're trying. And I don't know how successful you'll be in saying, come and see. I don't know, maybe in 2 weeks you'll baptize somebody. Maybe in 2 years you won't have had anybody come with you. I don't know. But we're not judged based on someone else's fruitfulness. We're judged based on our faithfulness. And I just believe, Mosaic, we need a reset. Because God has not brought us this far to settle, to get comfortable, to go through the motions. I believe we are in this place for such a time as this. And we could fill up hours and hours with all the great stories of our past, but I believe what God is thinking of right now is our future. He's not thinking of the baptism that was, He's thinking of the one that you will perform. I believe God's been working throughout your friend's entire lifetime for you to say those magic words, come and see. The question is, will you do it? Christmas is our best time to do it. I can tell you, I've seen the plan. It's going to be a good service. It's going to be fun. Kids' ministry is going to be great. Fun stuff in the lobby. But what's going to happen is they're going to hear grace. They're going to hear there's nothing you can do to make God love you anymore, and there is nothing you can do to make God love you any less. So the question for us, team, is will we play our hearts out? Will we go say, come and see? Let's pray. Jesus, I love that you say those great words of learn the unforced rhythms of grace, that you help us live freely and lightly, that you give endless second chances. But God, in the same time, you say, pick up your cross and follow me. And this is a way we are going to do that. So God, help us be part of the mission. Help us play as hard as we can so we can come in here and have as much fun as we can, knowing that grace and truth is for everybody. We love you, Lord. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.